I came back for Thanksgiving after closing on a small rental unit across town. It wasn't fancy 2 bedrooms, laminate floors, a kitchen with humming lights, but it was mine. I'd brought a pumpkin pie, half store-bought, half dressed up with cinnamon glaze, to make it look homemade. The table was already full. Turkey, mashed potatoes, that green bean casserole I never liked. My ex-husband, Daniel, sat at the head like he still lived there. My daughter Ava, 19 sophomore year, sat beside him. Her posture had changed more assured, chin tilted, like she was trying out new versions of herself. Across the table, Daniel's sister poured wine like we were all still one big, happy family. "You'll never get the house," Ava said suddenly, not even looking at me. Her voice casual, like she was commenting on the weather. I smiled with her. Daniel didn't flinch. He cut another slice of turkey. No one else said a word. I didn't yell. I didn't ask why. I just reached for my water and drank slowly. The ice had already melted. I remember thinking, of course it had. 2 years earlier, when Daniel and I divorced, I kept the mortgage. Not because I won the house, but because I had paid for most of it. Down payment from my inheritance, 10 years of double shifts to cover the remodel. When we split, he said Ava needed stability, and I believed him. So I moved out just for a little while and let them stay. I rented a studio near the clinic, told myself it was temporary. Ava was starting college soon, and the thought of disrupting her senior year made my stomach turn. I signed the documents myself. Temporary custodial arrangement, shared utility access, my name still on the deed, but the mailing address changed. One night, I mailed the keys back in an envelope marked, "For Ava." I didn't expect flowers, but I didn't expect silence either. No. Thank you. No. Are you okay living above a laundromat? No. Mom, I miss you. Just occasional photos from Daniel Ava smiling at her high school graduation, the cat I left behind sleeping on the windowsill, a new porch swing I didn't recognize. The first time something felt wrong was when the property tax bill never arrived. I checked online. The mailing address had been changed again this time, to Daniel's name, only. I called the assessor's office. They said a quitclaim had been filed. By who? I asked. It shows both parties, the woman replied. Joint authorization. I never signed anything. That was the first fracture. Then came the email from Ava's college, tuition still unpaid. I called her gently. Sweetheart, didn't the check clear? She hesitated. Dad said you decided not to help anymore. I was quiet. I had wired $6,000 2 weeks earlier. It had come from the equity loan on the house. A loan I didn't authorize but had apparently co-signed. That night I didn't sleep. I sat with my old file folder. The deed, the bank statements, the notarized agreement. Everything still had my name. But it didn't feel like it anymore. I was watching my life from the outside in. The next morning I texted Daniel. No reply. I called the bank. After 2 transfers and 30 minutes on hold, I got someone. Yes, the man said. You're listed as co-borrower, but not primary contact. Can I change that? I asked. Only with joint consent. I laughed, not because it was funny, because it was the kind of laugh you have when you finally stop being surprised. That was 3 weeks ago. Now, sitting at this dinner table, Ava's words felt less like an insult and more like a mirror. You'll never get the house. Not because I didn't deserve it, but because, to them, I never really owned it. To them, I was just the woman who signed checks, cooked meals, left quietly when asked. I glanced at the sideboard. The framed photo of the 3 of us smiling, mismatched sweaters, a Christmas tree blinking behind us was still there. My smile looked tired, even back then. Daniel raised his glass. To new chapters, he said. Everyone toasted. I did too. Water, not wine. I watched Ava clink glasses with her aunt, laughing. Her laughter had changed, too sharper now, like she knew more than she let on. Maybe she did. Or maybe she only knew what Daniel had told her. That her mother gave up. That her mother was unstable. That the house was always meant to be hers. But here's the thing about inheritance. Emotional or financial. It only holds if it's given willingly. And mine was never given. It was taken. I placed my fork down, wiped the corner of my mouth, and looked at Ava. She met my eyes for a second, then looked away. That was enough. I didn't need an apology. I just needed the truth to land. quietly, without ceremony, the way all betrayals do. When Ava was 8, I built her a reading nook under the stairs. It wasn't fancy, just some old blankets, a few string lights, and a beanbag chair I found on sale. But she loved it, called it her secret cave. Every night I'd find her curled up with a book and a flashlight, the cat draped across her legs. I used to stand at the door and watch her breathe, that steady rhythm only children have when they feel safe. Back then, I thought love was a list of things you did quietly. Making breakfast even when you were late, picking up cough syrup at midnight, letting your ex-husband move back into the house you paid for because your daughter said she missed him. That last one, I told myself, was temporary. Ava had been struggling in college. New place, new people, too many pressures. She asked if he could stay with her for a while, just until the semester ended. It helps, she said. Having him here feels normal again. I didn't push back. I wanted her to have stability, even if it meant I stayed a shadow in the margins. I was living in a rental above a dry cleaner, then thin walls, rattling windows, the smell of detergent always lingering. I told myself it was fine, that I was saving, that sacrifices were part of love. When I wired money for Ava's first semester, I included a note, "Let me know if you need anything." She never replied. I figured she was busy. I figured Daniel had things covered. That was what he always told me. "Don't worry, I've got it." But he never really had anything, not bills, not plans, not her. He had stories. And somehow, they were always just enough to make her doubt me. When I found out about the equity loan, I traced the application back to a digital signature. Mine. Forged. The date matched the week I was in urgent care with pneumonia. I remember texting Daniel then, asking him to pick up Ava's prescriptions. He never responded. When I asked the bank for a copy of the signed documents, they sent a PDF. My name was there, perfect and practiced. But I hadn't written it. I knew it, and so did he. I called Ava that night, my voice hoarse. "Sweetheart," I said, "did you know about the loan?" Her silence wasn't long, but it was telling. "Dad said you approved it," she finally said. "That it was part of the plan." "Whose plan?" I asked. She didn't answer, just hung up. That night, I made a spreadsheet. Not to keep score, not really, just to see it clearly. Mortgage payments since the divorce, college tuition transfers, property tax, maintenance, pest control, even the new roof from last summer. $74,812.62, all from my account. I stared at that number until it blurred. Not because I wanted anything back, but because I needed to know I hadn't imagined it, that my care had weight, that it was real. The next morning, I went back to the county office, in person this time. I asked to see the deed. The clerk raised an eyebrow when she pulled it up. "It was recently updated," she said, "transferred to a trust." "What trust?" I asked. "Ava Grace Property Trust," she replied. My daughter's full name. My stomach turned. The trustee? Daniel? Beneficiary? Ava. My name was nowhere. "That's not possible," I whispered. The clerk shrugged. "Looks like both signatures were verified." She turned the monitor toward me. There it was again, my name, signed, sworn, witnessed, a date, a notary stamp. I felt cold, like I was reading someone else's life. Later that day, I called the notary, listed on the form. She was polite, apologetic. Said she remembered the appointment clearly. "A man and a younger woman," she said. "He said you were running late, had your ID and written consent." "What did the consent look like?" I asked. "Typed, signed, looked official." She paused. "You're saying you weren't there?" "I was in the ER," I replied. She went quiet. "I'm so sorry," she said. I hung up. That night I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I sat in my rental, opened a fresh document, and started drafting a timeline. I listed every transaction, every email, every transfer. I attached scans, screenshots, copies. I labeled folders by month, by category. I didn't know exactly what I would do with it yet, but I knew I would need it. Because this wasn't just about a house. It was about a story being rewritten without me in it. And I wasn't going to let them end it that way. Not quietly. Not again. The letter came 3 days later. No return address, just my name printed neatly across the front. Inside was a single page, folded twice, typed. Per our previous discussion, it began as if there had been one. The transfer was done in good faith, in the best interest of Ava's long-term stability. You were always meant to be informed. It was signed by Daniel, no apology. No acknowledgement of the forged signature, the false notarization, the theft. Just polite distance, like this was a business adjustment and not a betrayal. That same night, I logged into the online portal for the mortgage account. There it was, a second draw on the equity line, $18,000, labeled Home Renovations. I checked the timestamp. It was the same day I'd had outpatient surgery. I remembered the hospital room, the beeping monitors, the nurse asking if someone was coming to pick me up. I'd said no. I didn't want to bother anyone. Apparently, someone had been busy. I scrolled further and saw something new. A third-party transaction involving a financial services firm I didn't recognize. The account had been leveraged as collateral. For what, I didn't yet know. But it meant only one thing. They weren't just trying to take the house. They were using it to build something I wasn't meant to see. I called the firm, posed as myself, which wasn't hard, because I was myself. The woman on the line was courteous, until she asked for identity verification. I gave her everything. She paused. "Ma'am, your name is not listed as an active party on the trust anymore." "I created that trust," I said flatly. "The funds came from my equity line." "I understand," she said carefully, "but legal ownership has shifted." I thanked her and hung up. Then I sat in the dark, phone in my lap, wondering when exactly I'd stopped existing in their story, when I'd gone from mother to liability. That weekend, I went back through old messages. Daniel had sent pictures of porch repairs, a new water heater, even a backyard garden. Ava's project, he'd written. She wants to make it her space. I'd hearted the message at the time. I thought it meant she was healing. I didn't know it was code. That Sunday, I drove past the house. My house. The shutters had been painted blue. There were solar panels now, and a new mailbox with a plaque that read, "The Grace Family." My last name wasn't Grace, it never had been. I parked across the street and watched. Ava came out carrying groceries. Daniel followed, holding a toolbox. They looked like a team, like a unit, like a version of family I no longer belonged to. I didn't cry, I didn't wave, I didn't make a scene. I just sat there, invisible in my own history. Then I drove straight to my attorney's office. Her name was Kayla Sharp, efficient. No patience for niceties. I'd helped her daughter get into a specialized treatment program 2 years earlier. When she saw me, she didn't ask what happened. She just said, "Show me everything." I handed her a flash drive, 37 files, timelines, screenshots, notarized fraud. Kayla clicked through, nodding occasionally. "They've exposed themselves," she said. "Trust fraud, property misappropriation, forgery. That's criminal, not just civil." "They'll say it was a misunderstanding," I murmured. "They always do." She looked up. "Then, let's be very clear. By Monday, we'd filed a cease and desist. By Wednesday, a lien was placed on the property. I didn't contact Ava. I didn't need to, because the silence had already begun to crack. On Friday, I got a call from her college advisor. "I'm sorry to reach out like this," she said gently, "but Ava's financial aid status has changed. The balance is due by next week, or her enrollment will be paused." "Why are you calling me?" I asked. "She listed you as guarantor," she replied. "She said you'd cover any gaps." I closed my eyes. "She never told me." "I figured," the woman said. "She looked surprised when I asked if she'd checked with you." Later that night, Ava texted, "I didn't know, Mom. I thought Dad had everything handled. I didn't ask questions." I didn't respond, not because I was angry, but because I didn't know how to explain that trust is not infinite, that it can run out, quietly, like a light bulb dimming before it dies. The next day, Daniel emailed. A long, meandering letter full of phrases like, "in hindsight," and "we meant well." At the end, he added one line that told the truth. "We didn't think you'd notice," and there it was, not malice. Not accident, just arrogance. They hadn't expected me to look, to fight, to reclaim what was mine, but I had. And the paper trail was now fireproof. The morning of the court filing, I made coffee in silence. No music, no news. Just the sound of the machine sputtering and the faint hum of traffic outside my window. I sat at the table, staring at the folder Kayla had given me. Inside were copies of every document. The fraudulent quitclaim, the forged loan paperwork, the fake consent form, used to establish the trust. It wasn't rage that settled in my chest, it was precision. I wasn't here to teach them a lesson. I was here to end the confusion about who I was and what they had done. At 9:47 a.m., the sheriff's department confirmed delivery of the notice to Daniel and Ava. By 10:22, Ava called. I let it go to voicemail. Her voice trembled. "Mom, what is this? Why are we being served?" I didn't answer. I was at the county recorder's office, filing an affidavit to dispute the quitclaim. Kayla had already contacted the financial institutions, flagged every transaction connected to the trust, and frozen disbursement of any further equity lines. Legally, I couldn't reverse the damage yet, but I could stop them from continuing it. At 2:03 p.m., I received a call from a blocked number. It was Daniel. "We need to talk," he said. "You're overreacting." I hung up. 2 minutes later, another message came in, this time from his personal email. "Let's be adults about this. Ava is distraught. You're putting her in the middle." I sat back and stared at those words. You're putting her in the middle. Not the man who forged my name. Not the father who used his daughter to shield his theft. Me. The one who'd stayed quiet too long. That night, Kayla and I worked late, drafting an injunction. I remember her pausing halfway through a sentence. "You know they might go public, right? Try to spin this as a misunderstanding?" "They've always been good at that," I replied. "But this time I have proof." 3 days later, Ava showed up at my apartment. I didn't expect her. She looked thinner, paler. Her hair was tied back in that messy way she used to do when she studied all night in high school. I didn't let her in. We stood in the hallway, and I watched her eyes scan everything my chipped doorframe. The smell of disinfectant from the neighbor's unit, the flickering light overhead. "You're really going through with this?" she asked. "I already have. It's just a house," she whispered. I almost laughed, but it wasn't funny. "No," I said. "It's the lie you built inside it." She blinked fast, her throat working. "I didn't know everything. I didn't know what Dad—" "You knew enough," I interrupted. "You knew I wasn't living there. You knew I paid for your tuition, your books, the insurance, and you never asked why the bills kept getting paid when I wasn't even allowed to set foot inside." She didn't deny it. She just shook her head like she was trying to hold something together that had already broken. "I thought you were trying to let go. I thought maybe you were done being a mom." That hurt, not because it wasn't cruel, but because I could see she believed it. "I never stopped being your mom," I said. "I just stopped being your safety net." She didn't cry. I think she wanted to, but guilt doesn't always give you the dignity of tears. She left without another word. I watched her go, then closed the door and locked it. The hearing came faster than expected. Daniel showed up in a blazer that didn't quite fit, and a folder of papers he clearly hadn't read. Ava sat beside him. Her eyes didn't meet mine. The judge was sharp, no nonsense. Kayla laid out the timeline. The fraudulent filings, the signatures that didn't match, the unauthorized loans, the fake notary appointment. "Your Honor," Kayla said, her voice calm, "this wasn't a clerical error. This was a calculated, documented transfer of assets without consent. My client didn't just lose her home. She was erased from her own life." Daniel tried to object, something about intention, about family. The judge cut him off. "Intent doesn't override documentation," she said. Then she looked at me. "Do you wish to make a statement?" I stood. "I loved them," I said. "I trusted them, and I thought that was enough. But the truth is, love without boundaries invites theft. I didn't come here for revenge. I came to reclaim my name." The ruling was swift. The quitclaim was nullified. The trust dissolved. An investigation was opened regarding the forgery. Kayla squeezed my hand under the table. Daniel didn't look at me. Ava did. Just for a second, but she didn't say a word. As I walked out of the courthouse, the wind caught the hem of my coat. I pulled it close and kept walking. Not away from them, but back toward myself. It took less than 48 hours for the backlash to start. The ruling hadn't even cooled, and already my phone was buzzing with withheld numbers and messages that started polite and turned panicked. The first was from Daniel. "We need to talk," he wrote. "This is spiraling." The second came from Ava, short and trembling. "They're freezing everything. I didn't know it would be like this." I didn't respond. I'd already said what I needed to say, in court, in silence, and in the years leading up to this. That Saturday, a voicemail came from Daniel's sister, the one who'd poured wine at Thanksgiving like we were still family. "You could have handled this quietly," she said, her tone thin with judgment. This isn't how families solve problems. I stared at the phone in my hand. Families don't forge signatures, I thought. Families don't lie, cheat, and call it love. They especially don't cash the checks of the person they're erasing. By Sunday, Ava's college financial portal had updated. Her tuition assistance had been pulled, pending reevaluation due to inconsistent guarantor information. I knew the phrase well. I'd helped write it once during a funding audit. That night, she texted again. Can I just ask, is there any way to fix this? I typed a reply, then erased it. Not because I didn't have words, but because she wasn't asking for understanding. She was asking for reversal. And what had been done couldn't simply be undone. Monday morning, the bank called. Not mine, Daniel's, or rather, the one still tied to the house via the frozen trust. There's a payment due, the rep said. The account is restricted. I know, I said. It's under investigation. Well, yes, she hesitated, but the balance is high, significant. I suggest he speaks to his attorney. I hung up before she could ask more. That afternoon, I went for a walk past the house. It looked smaller than I remembered. The garden was overgrown, the porch swing still. A red envelope peeked from the mailbox final notice. A "for sale" sign leaned against the garage, not yet planted. I stood across the street for a long time. No one came out. I didn't knock. I just turned around and walked back to where I belonged. That night, Ava called. I let it ring. Then came a string of messages. I didn't know. I thought Dad had a plan. You said you wanted me to be okay. I thought this was about protecting me. I read them all, slowly, twice. Then I put the phone down and made tea. Chamomile. Quiet. Familiar. At 1:13 a.m., she tried again. This time she left a voicemail. Her voice was brittle. I didn't ask questions because asking meant seeing, and if I saw it, I'd have to admit it wasn't fair. I don't know how to fix it, Mom. I really don't. For the first time since the hearing, I felt something shift. Not forgiveness, not sympathy, just space, enough to breathe. Still, I didn't call back, not yet. Tuesday, a letter arrived. No stamp. Hand-delivered. I recognized the handwriting immediately. Daniel's 6. Inside, a single sheet. I know I went too far. I thought if I framed it right, you'd let it slide. That's what you always did. Ava didn't know the details. That part's on me. I won't fight the reversal. I didn't think you'd really do it. I folded the letter. No fire, no flare. Just folded it and placed it in the drawer with the rest. By Friday, the bank moved forward with the freeze on the account. The renovation loan defaulted. Tax inquiries were opened. The house, once the Grace family estate, now had a foreclosure clock ticking. I wasn't gleeful. I wasn't bitter. I was just done carrying the shame of other people's choices. At 7:34 p.m. that night, Ava texted again. Just one word. Sorry. I stared at it. My thumb hovered. But then I turned the phone face down, got up, and turned out the light. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was earned. Because when you spend your whole life being quiet for the sake of peace, reclaiming your voice sounds like stillness. And for the first time in years, I slept without clenching my jaw. It started quietly. A missed payment here, a bounced check there. Then came the calls to numbers that no longer answered. Daniel's accounts began to unravel the way people do when they run out of someone else to lean on. The trust was gone, the equity drained, the house legally foreclosed. And now the creditors wanted clarity. I wasn't listed anymore. They couldn't reach me. They tried anyway. One email even read, "We were told you were the primary." I forwarded it to Kayla. She handled the rest. Meanwhile, Ava moved into a one-bedroom rental across town. Shared walls, no dishwasher, but she paid for it herself. She didn't ask me to co-sign. She didn't ask for anything. Every few weeks, she sent an update. Nothing dramatic. Just enough to let me know she was still moving forward. Got an A on my psych paper. Took a second shift at the bookstore. Started therapy. It's weird, but good. I never said much in return. She didn't expect me to. That was the difference now. She understood silence wasn't punishment, it was protection. For both of us. One afternoon, I ran into Daniel at the grocery store. I didn't plan it. I was picking up lentils and cleaning supplies. He looked older, thinner. His collar wrinkled, shoes scuffed. He saw me and froze. I didn't I walked past him, basket light in my hand, eyes forward. He muttered something, maybe my name, maybe not. I didn't stop. I didn't owe him stillness. That night, he called. I recognized the number and let it ring. The voicemail was short. You win. Hope you're proud. I deleted it, because it wasn't a game, and if he still thought it was, he hadn't learned anything. A week later, Kayla sent me a letter Daniel had attempted to file a dispute with the county, citing emotional duress during the signing of the original loan documents. It was dismissed. No merit, no evidence. The final line of the court's response read, "Responsibility delayed is not responsibility denied." I printed it and pinned it to the corkboard in my kitchen. A reminder, not of him, but of what survival, backed by truth, can do. That same week, I got a card in the mail, handwritten, from Ava. No return address. Just the words, "I know now. That's all. Love, A." I placed it in the drawer beside her baby teeth, the ones I kept in a pillbox labeled Firsts. I didn't cry, but I sat down slowly, let the weight of everything settle around me like dust. When you spend years being erased, being seen again feels like a quiet resurrection. It doesn't fix you. It just confirms you were real all along. Meanwhile, word about the foreclosure spread. Daniel's name started to fade from the local business listings. Someone online posted about unpaid bills and bounced retainers. I didn't engage. I didn't need to. Reputations undo themselves when they're built on silence and stolen credit. I started going back to the gym. Nothing intense, just movement. I made a new recipe every Sunday. I grew herbs in mismatched mugs by the window. Ava once sent a photo of a pot of burnt rice with the caption, "Trying, failing, reheating." I replied, "That's cooking." She liked the message. That was it, but it was enough. And then one morning, the envelope arrived. Thick paper, embossed edge, a wedding invitation. From Daniel's niece, the same one who toasted us at our anniversary party years ago. The envelope was addressed to the Grace family. No first name, no recognition, just assumption. I stared at it. Not angry, not sad, just tired. I didn't respond. I didn't RSVP. I didn't go. Ava didn't either. She told me later, over tea, that she'd sent a gift. I didn't know what else to do, she said. I nodded. Sometimes doing something is still better than pretending nothing happened. She looked at me. Is that what I did? Pretend? For a while, I said, but not anymore. She didn't smile. But she stayed. Longer than she used to. And when she left, she said, "Let me know if you ever need anything." I didn't answer, just watched her go. Then I folded laundry, made soup, lit a candle, the quiet kind. The kind that doesn't beg to be noticed. The kind that reminds you the room is yours. I made coffee slowly. For the first time in years, I didn't check my bank app while it brewed. No mental tally of balances. No reminders of overdue notices with someone else's name attached. Just the sound of the drip, the weight of the ceramic cup in my hand, and the morning sun curling over the windowsill like it remembered how to find me. The apartment was quiet, not from absence but from peace. The plants on the windowsill had stopped dying. The new sheets I'd bought forest green were soft and crisp, and didn't carry anyone else's scent. I didn't need permission to repaint the walls or throw out the broken lamp that had followed me through 3 addresses. I didn't need to ask anyone if I could take up space. One afternoon, I went through the last box from the storage unit. Inside were photos I hadn't looked at in years. Ava in kindergarten, her arms wrapped around a snowman with crooked eyes. Daniel and I at a barbecue, both sunburned, both smiling, both already tired. I didn't throw them away. I didn't cling to them either. I placed them in a clean envelope, labeled it "Before," and set it in the back of a drawer. Not to forget, but to remember where the story stopped lying. The foreclosure was finalized in early spring. Daniel never appealed again. Ava forwarded me an email from the realtor final listing photos. A generic write-up, square footage, needs some updating. I looked at the pictures. The shutters were still blue. The porch swing was gone. The yard was flat and bare. There was no trace of the reading nook under the stairs, just beige paint and shadows. I didn't feel loss. I felt confirmation. The house was never the point. It was the mirror. And it no longer reflected me. A week later, a package arrived at my door. No note. Just a plain box wrapped tightly with string. Inside was the old quilt I'd made when Ava was 10, the one I'd hand-stitched over 6 weekends, every patch a scrap from clothes she'd outgrown. It had been missing for years. I thought it was lost in one of the moves, or thrown out. But here it was faded, fraying at the corners, but intact. I held it against my chest for a long time, not crying, just remembering how much of love is invisible while it's alive. Later that day, I got a text. Ava again, just one sentence. "I thought you should have it." I replied, "Thank you." Nothing more. She didn't answer back. She didn't have to. That night, I lit a candle. Not for grief, just for stillness. A soft flame, steady and unhurried. I sat beside it and folded towels. The hum of the dryer in the background, the distant traffic. The ordinary rhythm of an unremarkable evening. It felt remarkable to me. One Sunday morning, I walked to the local market. The cashier asked if I wanted to join the rewards program. I laughed, really laughed, and said yes. She handed me a tiny card with my name printed on it. Mine. No one else's. On the way home, I passed a couple arguing in a car. Nothing violent, just sharp voices, the kind that come from fear disguised as control. I didn't flinch. I didn't turn away. I just kept walking. Because I had nothing to prove. I didn't need to show that I survived. My life was showing it for me. A few weeks later, Ava invited me to lunch. Her treat, she said. She picked a small cafe with mismatched chairs and chipped mugs. I noticed her posture had changed, more grounded now, less rehearsed. She didn't wear the careful smile I used to see when she was trying to be neutral. This smile was smaller, but real. She told me she was applying for reinstatement at a new college. That she was working with a financial counselor to understand how money actually works. That she'd blocked Daniel's number. "I think he's mad," she said, "but I think he's always been mad at the wrong things." I sipped my coffee. Probably. We didn't talk about the house, or the court, or the trust. We didn't have to. Near the end of the meal, she reached across the table, fingers barely brushing mine. "I still don't know how to say sorry the right way," she said. "Then don't," I said. "Just be better." She nodded. And for once, I believed she would be. We walked out separately. No hugs, no dramatic music, just two people moving forward at their own pace. That evening, I opened the drawer where I kept the important things. Insurance forms, emergency contacts, the card from Ava. I added something new, a blank notebook. The first page read, "What now?" I didn't know the answer, but I finally had the space to ask. I turned off the lights, washed my cup, cracked the window open just a bit. The air smelled like something beginning. The past no longer owned the room. I didn't walk away to hurt them. I walked away to find peace, and I stayed there.